The Ancients World. Chapter 231, Journey to the Barony of James II. The Dryad people are a mysterious race among the people of today. Many documents and files regarding their people have either been destroyed or lost to time. Thousands of years will do that. Magically enhanced documents will be fine, but I doubt they had the foresight for that. All these thoughts about the Dryads and Belvia remind me of that monster I released. While I don't think it's going to remain in the mortal realm, it might cause problems in the future. Belvia is going to call all of its allies for this war. It's going to be big. I have no doubt this puts pressure on the coalition and church. Sally and I will not be involved in such things. We have our own problems to handle. These thoughts about war make me realize that if I wanted to go to war with anyone, all I need to do is ask the fairies and dryads. My reputation with them is so high they'll go to war for me if I asked. It's nice to know I have allies. I'd be able to take on multiple armies and kingdoms with my power, so it's kind of pointless in the end. How do you think this will affect the war with the monsters? Sally brings up the point everyone is thinking about now. The coalition might just doom Belvia to its fate. It can't risk fighting two wars. It's a political game now, in which kingdom and people have more value to the war with the monsters. This war is going to determine that. Zenith still has the legendary item that used to belong to the Dryads. Jackson is a smart man and a wise leader. He'll likely give it back for an alliance and good faith. Along with open trade with the Dryads. It's useless to him, and his army since the mana cost is too high for any normal person. That leaves a golden opportunity to form a strong bond with a strong race. Many people in other kingdoms will protest the war. I'm sure there is chaos in Belvia right now. The fact that this adds an entirely new war for the coalition to fight makes it obvious that the coalition is considering the abandonment of Belvia. I'm guessing this by the way. The Dryad kingdom's strength is unknown at this point. If the coalition could get an accurate picture of what they are up against, they'll make a decision. If this war does happen, I'm rooting for the Dryads. Belvia needs to pay for its past sins. I look out ahead as we fly, and the natural openness and freedom calm my racing mind. Let's not worry about any of that, Sally. Let them fight their wars and let them make their decisions. If the world starts to collapse into extinction from all these events, then we'll intervene. I doubt any of this will progress that far, though. A planet I once resided on has come to an end. I don't intend to let this world suffer a similar fate. More than half the human race has been annihilated. No reason to see the other half be left alone. Since we can't die by normal means, if these wars escalate that far, all life would die except for us players. It'd be like a new Earth, but we'd be dooming the rest of life. That's why the system has offered for players to join war efforts. So the people of Gaia have a chance of not losing in the billions on the death toll. I'm fine with that, Zirn. Promise me that if it does get to the point that the world might end, you'll do anything. That is an easy thing to promise. I nod my head, and Sally snuggles her head against mine. While Sarah and Sally continue to travel, there are plenty of conversations going on around Gaia. These conversations all have the same premise in mind. What does the war between Belvia and the Dryads mean for the coalition and the war against the monsters? Many kings and queens are meeting in an emergency meeting. One meeting is held between the kingdoms still aligned with the church. The other emergency meeting is between the members of the coalition. Jackson is at the meeting for the coalition, listening carefully. The meeting we've all been called to is more important than ones in recent time. I look around at my fellow coalition members, and we are all taking glances at the pale-faced king of Belvia. He is looking defeated before the fight has even begun. Even though we are holograms, there is still coloration. We all know why this meeting has been called. The kingdom of Belvia is going to war with a powerful kingdom in the Dryads. We need to determine if it's still worth having Belvia in the coalition. Gregory finishes his opening speech, and I watch the look of despair on Belvia's king. Losing the support and protection of the coalition is surely detrimental to Belvia and its people. From the rumors I've heard, the Dryad's disappearance was due to the Belvia kingdom thousands of years ago. New truths about the church have also been learned too, and how they were involved in the cover-up. The Dryads are bitter and resentful to a lot of people. I don't intend to be on that list, so I will make my move right now. I stand up and clear my voice. Before we start this discussion, I want everyone to know that I've made a big decision regarding this. Many of the rulers look at me in curiosity. Many deduce what I'm planning after a second. I have the Dryad's legendary weapon, and I'm giving it back in exchange for an alliance and open trade. As you all know, my kingdom is in possession of many treasures. Be them people or items. Many give a bitter look, knowing I have strong connections with Slayer Zirn. Through his mother, of course. I'm going to be making an alliance with the Dryads and open trade with them. I'm giving back their legendary item. There is silence at first, but protests soon break out. Gregory raises his hand and silences the voices. Are you saying that you will help the Dryads in their war with Belvia? You do realize that Belvia is still a part of the coalition, right? I don't like his questioning nature. This decision is much more than just an alliance with the Dryads. I've come to realize that total independence from the coalition and the church is best. No longer having to fulfill obligations that are ludicrous. Many will hate me for my decision today, and many more will likely want to follow but will be too scared. I close my eyes and think calmly about how to word this. I'm leaving the coalition entirely, Gregory. Best to get it over with fast. I open my eyes and see his shocked face. Never in many years did he see that coming. He grits his teeth waiting for further explanation. I'm officially renouncing any alliances with the coalition and its members. My kingdom has a bright future ahead, and I'm not going to ruin it with terrible politics. Good luck in your wars. I look to the king of Belvia and see that he is ready to be sick. I have many things going on in terms of protection for my kingdom. The biggest being Amelia. I feel awful using Slayer Zirn and Amelia to go independent, but being king means making decisions not everyone will like. You coward! Hiding behind your relationship with Slayer Zirn and putting this coalition in further jeopardy. You are lucky that he is on your side. You would have a war otherwise. Gregory, for the first time in my life, has completely lost his cool. He is a master strategist and is great at determining people's moves. It hurts his pride. He never saw this coming. I'm taking it a step further, too. I turn my attention to the majority of the room. I've already been in contact with the Dryads. They are willing to create alliances and open trade with anyone who isn't allied with Belvia and doesn't have connections with the church. I implore you all to do so. Everyone in this room isn't a part of church politics anymore. That's one condition fulfilled. With those words, I have shifted the power in the coalition. I look at Gregory and see pure rage. I've played him to the maximum extent. Everyone in this room will see the benefit of this deal and abandon Belvia. Since no one can contend with Zenith in terms of powerful connections, everyone has to decide. That's why Gregory is mad. They either stay allied with Belvia and fight in the war or abandon Belvia and join mine and the Dryads' side. Don't look so mad, Gregory. The offer extends to you too. Before he can start screaming at me, I turn my hologram off. I turn to one of my servants, nodding my head. Time to finalize this masterpiece of a move. My kingdom will be free and independent. Chapter 232, Journey to the Barony of James III. We've been traveling for several hours, and the endless forests are becoming a sight I'm growing tired of. I couldn't imagine how annoying it'd be to travel on foot. I shouldn't really be complaining, as they say. Once you become accustomed to a certain standard of living, you change. While I'm not a rich snob or a pompous noble, I'm, in fact, finding that the slower things are, the more frustrated I get. It's a bad habit that I've developed, and now I can feel that festering of frustration in the back of my mind at how slow this trip is. Despite the fact we are flying at 430 miles per hour. Gaia's size is truly staggering. The rumors of it being ever-expanding were very popular back on Earth in my old future. I've thought about this during my trip to Zenith for the first time. The dwarfs' land across one of the several oceans is largely unexplored, as are many other lands on Gaia. Add that to the player continent that was created for our arrival here, and you have a place that's been calmly settled and timid in its development. They have been around longer than humans and have only progressed little in terms of technology. I'm guessing there will be many players with dreams of rebuilding a modern society, recreating patents for inventions they'll steal from our old home. Who is there to dispute such things? The laws are different here in the ancients' world. Any original inventors of life-changing products are long dead. Someone can probably create a phone using magic in a few years. Anyone with an understanding of engineering could probably do it. I'm not one of those special snowflakes, though. Players are to bust trying to find their place here to be worried about that though. Worldwide announcement: the Kingdom of Zenith has left the coalition of kingdoms and is now completely independent. Zenith is entering an alliance with the Dryads and is the first kingdom to do so since the Dryads' return. They are also the only kingdom with exclusive trade with the Dryads. Worldwide announcement: the Kingdom of Belvia has been kicked out of the coalition. They are alone in their war against the Dryads and possibly Zenith. The Kingdom of Belvia is desperate for all the help it can get. World mission: Belvia has lowered their standards for players to join them. Anyone is welcomed now. Increased rewards and EXP boosts are now available to players that join Belvia. Worldwide announcement: the coalition is debating an entire dissolution of their faction. Many kings and queens are debating if they should rejoin the church or go independent like Zenith. These events will cause major shifts in the ongoing wars. Worldwide announcement: there is a massive imbalance in forces for the war effort due to the current events. The church and coalition have lowered their standards for players that can join in the wars. Any player is now able to approach their local church branch for missions regardless of level. Rewards are a huge boost in EXP gain and access to standardized rare armor and weapons. These messages will repeat for 2 minutes. My thoughts are completely derailed from the several announcements going off. It seems like there are plenty of developments everywhere. Whoa, do you think we had anything to do with this? Sally has probably just got done hearing the church's version for the natives of Gaia. I think my actions have had an effect on this outcome, but a lot of things have to fall into place for a big change like this. It was likely a plan that someone has been rolling out for a long time now. Jackson moved way faster in his goals than I thought. I knew that he would do something but leaving the coalition and gaining total independence. Not to mention a powerful new alliance and exclusive trade. It'll bring money, commerce, and attention to Zenith, helping it grow and develop even faster. A masterful move. He completely changed the future of Zenith, and it's in a positive light. He definitely used his relationship with me to do it in some form. However, it's not like he or I have to do anything. Just the fact it exists is enough to discourage a lot of new enemies. I take a second to think about all the new things that players will have access to. The growth of power among the players will burst. This is going to cause problems in itself. We had a little bit to do with it, but I doubt it's a big reason. Many kings and queens will probably want independence too. No ruler of an entire kingdom wants to be put in check by a council or a power structure like the church. I think this is just the beginning. The things to follow this are going to be numerous and fundamentally changing for many things. As Sarah and Sally continue their travel in the evening, there is chaos between players and natives of Gaia. All these developments affect people differently, but it's no doubt that it massively benefits the players. Many councils are meeting to discuss and argue about needs and wants. One of a select few rulers has no more meetings to go to anymore, for he is now completely independent from anyone. Jackson is sitting on his throne and look at the court. Many nobles are talking, and Jackson's wife and queen comes out and sits next to him on her throne. I look at my beautiful wife and see her wearing the feathers Irn gave her in her hair as a decorative piece. She looks at me and smiles. I take it we are about to have an important meeting with our subjects. I smile as Tessa says that. We are having a meeting with all the nobles in my capital. The rest spread out across the kingdom couldn't get here in the time I set. I don't hold them accountable. They won't get to voice their opinions, though, since they aren't here. I'd like to hear all my subjects' ideas, but I have to settle for the nobles. The last of the nobles walk through the doors, and it's Amelia with an escort of guards. Ever since she has revealed her identity as Slayer Zern's mother, she can't go anywhere in the city. People swarm in both her carriage. Hundreds begging for help. It weighs greatly on her, and I don't like the fact that she has to deal with such desperate people. That's the crown's fault. That problem will be solved when this kingdom is fully fixed. Now that we are independent, we can focus on making the capital and kingdom better than ever before. Before I can respond to Tessa's question, she stands up with excitement and dashes towards Amelia waving her hand and smiling. I sigh at the childish behavior. Sometimes it slips out of people, and many people look up to Slayer Zern. The fact that his mother is a personal friend and bona fide high-ranking noble of Zenith makes things safer in the capital and kingdom. We won't be openly attacked or targeted when she is here. Not if they want the wrath of Slayer Zern or Archangel Michael himself. After a few minutes of the nobles talking and catching up, I stand up and clear my throat. Getting all of their attention. We are calling this meeting for 2 reasons. The second will be revealed after the first. Many stay silent and prepare to help in any way we can. We are in an alliance with the Dryads. Even though they have not asked for help in their war, I have offered. However, the only thing they have requested is knowledge. The Dryads want to learn about the advancements that have happened since their time. That way, they can be more effective in the war. This request is easy to fulfill, but they have not said anything about accepting help in terms of military power. That might change, but at this point, it doesn't look like it. We continue to discuss this subject for a good 2 hours. What we can trade, how we can help upgrade their infrastructure, anything at all to improve relations. While we are allies, that's only because I gave them back their legendary item that Slayer Zern took from their ancient kingdom. It was only fair to do such a thing. Now it's time to broach the second subject. Now that we are done with the first subject, it's time for the second. I clap my hands, and multiple butlers come out and prepare tables and food and start to play music. I think it's only right that we celebrate our independence from the coalition and church. Let's remember this day as a fantastic turning point for Zenith. Every noble claps and cheers in a modest way. The future is bright, and I intend to make Zenith one of the greatest kingdoms in the world. Bringing it back from the State Herald put it in. Chapter 233, Journey to the Barony of James IV. The sun is finally setting over the horizon, and that means it's time to come down for the night. I dive towards the ground at a speed that many would consider very dangerous. Sally takes the surprise as I expected and squeals in shock and fear. Right before we hit the forest, I pull us up and level out. Coming to a slow and gentle stop. I land, and she gets off me and proceeds to punch me in the shoulder over and over again. It's hurting her more, and it's hurting me. I hate it when you do that. The least you could do is warn me. I chuckle as I see the cute angry expression. She doesn't find my amusement with her reaction all that great. She turns her back to me and releases a huff. I decide to let her fester the way she is. It's not going to bother me. I pull the tent out of my inventory and set it up. I lay down the furs inside the tent to make it a little more comfortable. Once finished, I can that Sally is still pouting, which is unusual for her. This can mean several things. The first is that she is actually mad, the second being she just wants attention, and the third is the randomness women sometimes have. I think it's the first or second one. All the time I've spent with Sally, I haven't witnessed the randomness that women have. I didn't think it would upset you so much. Is there something else I did that's made you mad at me? She looks at me and sees that I'm genuinely confused. She must have been really bothered by the quick and unexpected dive. She sighs and looks away. I guess this is one of those moments when I have to find out on my own. I have tact, and I can tell what makes people upset, but that doesn't mean I can do it all the time. I don't want to be the type of guy that just waits until his partner gets over it. I'd like to know what I did wrong, so I don't do it again. I sit next to her and wonder if I can get a hint from her expressions and body language. She isn't giving me anything, though. No matter what I do, there isn't any indication on her face. You're going to have to figure it out on your own. This is a good lesson for you. What am I, a dog? This is turning into a situation that I don't want to be in. So she leaves me no choice but to play the role of waiting for her to get over it. The crypticness of this problem isn't something people should put each other through. I know for a fact that when relationships are clear and communication is good, they last longer. If she doesn't communicate with me, then I see no reason to do so either. Instead of sitting next to her and trying to figure it out, I stand up and head towards the tent. The stars are out, and I'd love to see them, but standing next to her when she is so tense isn't what I want to spend time with her doing. You didn't warn me when I have already asked you to right before I climb into the tent, she speaks. I recall doing this before, and she got very emphatic about me telling her or warning her when I do that. I get it now. She feels like I didn't place any value in her request and is now hurt by my lack of care for her needs. While it is a complex way to get angry, it's how women work sometimes. What's small to me can be really big to her. I stand straight up and walk back over to her and sit at her side. I'm sorry that I made it seem like I didn't care about what you wanted. Next time, I'll remember to warn you. Can you promise me something? She slowly nods her head. I take a breath and prepare to speak. When there is an issue between us, I don't want to have to beat around the bush and try to figure it out. I want you to tell me if I'm not able to. It'll save both of us a lot of frustration. I was going to let you sit here and get mad because I wasn't going to be playing those games. She looks towards the ground and fiddles with her fingers. I'm not trying to hurt her feelings or make her feel bad. Many good relationships get ruined because one partner doesn't want to talk about the problems and make the other suffer from trying to figure it out. Before she speaks again, I wrap one arm around her and give her a sideways hug. She hesitates for a second, and I kiss the side of her head. I'm new to relationships. However, this is the first time we've had an argument. Well, there wasn't any yelling or actual genuine anger. More of a disagreement on how things should be talked about. If anything, it's a mix of the two. I'll promise to tell you when you do something that really bothers me and I want you to do the same for me. I nod my head in agreement with her wise words. She leans her head in my shoulder, and we look through the big opening in the trees above us, and we see the countless stars spreading across the sky. In retrospect, this is a very romantic moment. I'm not a romantic, and I have a hard time with things like that. Sally deserves effort put into those moments, though. She is a wonderful person, and if I don't give it a legitimate shot any chance I get, then I'm a pathetic excuse for a man. The stars are something that I couldn't see from where we knew people come from. I'm glad I get to see them with you, Sally. I do my best at some romantic words. They are amateurish, but damn it, I gave it my best shot. If that isn't enough for your partner, then you need to re-evaluate the relationship. Sally cuddles closer and wraps one arm around my waist as we sit side by side, holding one another. I'm glad that I get to be here with you too, Zirn. I never thought I'd love a man in my life, let alone let him as close as I have you. It goes to show just how special you are and how much you've changed me. I love you, Zirn. Damn, she beat my attempt by a mile. I think there is something I should tell her. My real name, she deserves to know it. This is going to be a big step, and it might change how she looks at me. I can't keep this from her forever, though. Sarah, I say the name once, and for a second, she looks at me in confusion. Waiting for an explanation, I feel nervous. An unfamiliar state to me, one I'm rarely in. My real name is T.A.W. It's my name from the place I come from. Slayer'sirn is my name here on Gaia. I look her in the eyes, and I scan her face, looking for any hints that I have betrayed her trust. Instead, I watch her smile. Not the reaction I thought she'd have, but not unwelcomed. I'm happy that you have come to trust and love me enough to tell me this, but I already knew, Sarah. I can't help the massive amount of confusion on my face. How in the world can she know any of this? She sees this and chuckles to herself. You talk in your sleep. I've heard you talk about people called Violet, Haley, Chris, and Marcus. Adamo is the only new thing I've learned here. I'll be damned. I talk in my sleep. I wonder what else I talk about. What else she has come to know. She sees my questioning look and prepares to tell me more about what she has learned from my sleep talking. You often talk about a place called Earth, and home billions died. How it's your fault. You talk about that you should have thought things out better regarding some sort of wish. Kind of confusing. To be honest, you don't know it, but I think you have nightmares often. Waking up not realizing you have them. She has already come to know so much, and she has been patient to wait for me to tell her. I feel like I don't deserve her anymore. How rare is it to find someone like this? She obviously doesn't know everything, but she knows enough to have had a change of heart and feeling about me, but instead, she accepted me. I love you, Sally. I run my hand along her nape and neck, placing it behind her head. I slowly bring her face in, and she closes her eyes. Knowing what's coming, I slowly kiss her, trying to express how much that means to me. How much she means to me. Chapter 234, Journey to the Barony of James V. Sally and I head into the tent now that we have solved her problem with me. I lay down and release a sigh. Sally follows suit and lays down next to me. She uses my chest and body as something to snuggle and support her while she sleeps. I don't mind it, and it's about another day and a half until we reach the kingdom of Pleer. Once in their land, we'll head for the Barony of James. I close my eyes and think about what Sally said. I never knew that I talked in my sleep. Strangely, I have such a habit. I suppose that's only natural. I suppress a lot of bad memories and feelings. I don't have an outlet for them, and I guess my coping mechanism for them is to talk in my sleep. I must be reliving them and suppressing them in my sleep. It's not something that I can control, and that makes me pissed. Who knows what Sally's truly heard about me and the things I've done? There's no point in stressing over it now, and that's probably the best way to look at this issue. I have no solution for it, so I just have to deal with the fact that it happens. As Sally and Sarah sleep for the night, a certain sister of Sarah Adamo is traveling around. In the kingdom of Pleer, to be specific. She is there on a mission for a friend she has made as a native of Gaia. Haley is in the kingdom of Pleer for the same reason Sarah and Sally are going there. She is there to take care of a severe slavery problem. She is heading to the Barony of James herself and has no idea that Sarah is on his way there. It seems like many people who hate slavery are thinking about making a change, but only the strong can do anything. My feet severely hurt from walking on this rough road for the last several days. I'm about a day away at this point. If only I could fly, I whisper my desire for the freedom I tasted when I was flying on Sarah's back. While I was sick for most of the trip to the continent, I still enjoyed the beginning when I wasn't sick. I look up towards the star-covered sky and wonder if any of my friends and family are looking up to the sky too. I turn my attention back to the road and sigh. This same scenery has gotten too boring. The quest I got from Jasmine is a disturbing one. She isn't strong enough to come with me on this mission. So she is waiting in her hometown until I'm done. She's a native of Gaia that has become a good friend and my traveling companion. Her life as a slave haunts her very much. She has asked me to come to the place it all started to get revenge for her. I have no problem doing such a thing. Ever since I got my legendary class battle mind, my life has become very convenient. People do things for me, and I'm treated better than everyone else. Jasmine reminds me so much of my best friend Kelly from Earth. It's probably why I've grown to care for her so much. I miss my friends from Earth so much. Most are dead now, and the others that are left are lost to me. Mew, a soft meow comes from my backpack, and my other companion pops her head out of my backpack. A tiny white tiger cub, which is strange cause tigers can't meow. A nice difference here on Gaia. I sling my backpack on my shoulder and pull her out. I carry her in my arms. I found her in a quest I did shortly after I got out of the airship when I left Sarah. She'll eventually grow to be a powerful ally. She a beast that I'll be able to ride, and she'll fight by my side. She's a legacy in grade. I don't know much about her specific race, only that she looks like a white tiger. You must be hungry, hey, Emerald. She is a very intelligent cub. Her name is Emerald due to her eye color. Another strange feature of this tiger cub. She looks at me and understands my words easily. She licks her lips and lets out another mew. I pull some salmon out of my inventory and feed her piece by piece, so she doesn't choke trying to scarf a bunch down at the same time. If you're not careful, you'll take a finger from me. She slows down a bit after I say that. I smile as I look towards the road as she continues to eat. She was a bonus quest reward I got. I took a page from Sarah's book and looked everywhere and did all the extra work for the quest, no matter how hard it was. She's been by my side since before I got my legendary class. Speaking of that, from the announcements I heard a while back, Marcus and our parents have got all there now. I can't wait for you to meet my family one day. Especially my little brother. He is a pretty awesome guy. I would have never met if not for what I learned from him. After a couple more minutes, she finishes the salmon and purrs in my arm as I carry her. Tigers can't purr either, and that's another thing I learned that is different between her and regular tigers. I bring her up behind my head, and she snuggles between my neck and backpack. I feel her deep purrs in my head. It's her favorite spot to be when we are walking. I would have taken an airship, but the ones coming this way are closed because of the war with monsters. So that means walking for me. Normally I would have set up a camp and rested for the night, but I'm not tired enough to do that. Once in the Barony of James, it'll be smart to keep a low profile. I'm not as famous as my brother, but if people find out who I am, my mission there will become much more difficult. I take a breath and release a sigh. I'm happy I get to help Jasmine with this. As Haley and Emerald walk the main roads towards the Kingdom of Plear and subsequently the Barony of James, the night passes slowly and without too much chaos around Gaia. There is to be a meeting soon to discuss if the coalition should be fully dissolved or not. Not only that, but players are joining wars in droves. With such an influx in manpower, many kingdoms fighting in these wars are having economic booms. If not for World War II, America wouldn't have left the Great Depression. The same thing applies here, and soon the sun is rising and Sarah and Sally are waking up. I stretch in the tent, and my body pops. The sun is barely rising, and it's especially cold this morning. Sally is clinging to me as if I'm the only reason she sleeps. I'm glad the cold doesn't bother her. I raise one hand to my face and clean the crust out of my eyes. I roll my neck, and it pops a few times. I lean up and cough a little. It's one of those groggy mornings that slips in once, and a while. Sally groans in protest as I sit up and move around. I gently peel her off me, and I exit the tent. I release a breath, and I can see it as it exits my mouth. That means it's really cold today. I get a few feet away from the tent, and I start to set up a fire. I get some dry wood, and I start a fire. I help it grow, and I feel its warmth grace my skin. It's a nice heat. The cold doesn't bother me due to my extremely high stats, and it doesn't bother Sally, thanks to her class. I look towards the sunrise, and it's barely peeking over the mountains. The sun hasn't warmed the cold woods yet, and that's why everything is cold and frozen here. Some of the coldest places that aren't near the poles are in dense forests. At least that's how it was on Earth. After a few minutes of sitting by the fire, Sally comes out of the tent in the same groggy state I did. She sees me and the fire and walks over. She sits next to me and buries her face in her knees. She isn't affected by the cold. She is just very tired. Once the sun fully rises over those mountains, we can head out, take some time to wake up. I need it too. She slowly nods her head as she lets out a yawn. It's one of those contagious yawns, and I follow suit. I look into the fire and think about things. Mainly where we go first for when we make it to the Barony of James. Chapter 235, Journey to the Barony of James VI. I look up from the fire, realizing that Sally will have to be my guide when we are in the Barony of James. Being around a place where you suffered heavy trauma isn't going to be easy. Are you okay with being the guide once we reach the Barony of James? I know its location, but not the exact layout as you would. She raises her face out of her knees and rests her head against them as she looks at me. She has a thoughtful look in her eyes. Contemplating if she should. She lightly nods her head after a couple of seconds. I turn my attention back to the fire and the mountains beyond them, where the sun is slowly rising. I never thought I'd be going back to that place. I always feared they'd find me and drag me back. That was the only way I thought I could end up back. The idea of getting revenge on the James family is exciting. She announces her thoughts now that I've brought up the tough subject. I keep my gaze on the rising sun and mountains, and once I finally have a response, I turn my head and look at her. She has an ashamed look on her face. She must think that getting revenge is wrong and being excited about it even more so. While many humanitarians and pacifists would agree with her shame, I don't. You can feel however you want to about it, Sally. You can be scared, eager, excited, nervous. It's okay to feel these things when we are doing what we are doing. Remember that this is just the first stop on the trip. Once we are done in the Barony James, if you decide you want to continue killing all the ones that did you wrong, we will. There are many places a slave could end up being sent and returned. I don't doubt for a second that Sally's willpower and defiance against her captors caused problems against the men that wanted to buy her and sell her. I'm all of those things and more. I feel like I'm opening the Pandora's box on something that I should just forget when I think that. I think about all the innocent women that I'll be saving, all the slavers that will be stopped. When I think of that, my determination is overpowering all the others. That's a good thing. She is doing the right thing. On Earth, this wouldn't be possible. I'm sure if women could hurt their abusers and rapers after the fact, without any repercussion, they would. Gaia is different. While you can get in trouble for murder, many will let the killer of slavers go. It's a blight on this world billions disagree with. I'm proud of you for doing this. Her head darts up as I say that. I think she needs to hear this. The strength of character you're showing is truly amazing. Your mother would be proud too. She opens and closes her mouth, trying to find words. After a couple of seconds, tears start to form on the edges of her eyes. She scoots over to me and lays her head against my shoulder. She turns her head and buries her face into my shoulder, and begins to let out soft cries. I wrap my arm around her and comfort her. I miss her so much. I only have her journals. She died so soon after I was born. Her pain is great. I felt the same when Haley's dealer murdered my mother right in front of me. Being too weak and too much of a coward to move. Her pain is similar but different. She has a deep scar that will never go away. Her existence likely haunts her too. I lightly rock her and give her all the time she needs to let her emotions out. To vent in any way she needs. Your mother is looking down from overworld. Smiling down on you. I know it. What mother couldn't be proud of you? She wraps her arms around me fast and squeezes me tightly into a hug. She sobs harder as she hears those words. After watching the sunrise as she cries, I notice that she is quiet now. I lift her gently off me and see she has cried herself to sleep. I lay her gently on the ground and pack up the tent. It's time we get a move on. It sucks I have to wake her. As Sarah wakes up Sally for today's trip. The Barony of James is trying to prepare for the worst. A woman of James' family is laying plans to usurp her brothers and stop the horrible things her father created. Kelly James is trying to think of ways to get Slayer Zyrn on her side and not be killed. She has concluded with the information she has that the destination of Slayer Zyrn is, in fact, the Barony of James. She knows this cause the half-elf he is traveling with used to be a slave of the James family. One was treated very poorly. Worse than other slaves. The foolishness of my father and brothers has come back to haunt the family. My only chance of survival is to try and speak to Slayer Zyrn before any of my brothers. Many of my spies have no information coming from my brothers' estates. None of them know where or when Slayer Zyrn is supposed to be arriving in the barony. Should I contact the Adventurers Guild to increase security, my lady? My trusted butler wants to increase the security around my estate. However, I don't think there is a mortal strong enough to hurt Zyrn. It'll be a waste of gold and make us look hostile. That won't be necessary. If he comes to my estate, I want there to be no reason to fight. We need a plan to be the first ones to speak to him. He needs to know that I'm not like the rest of the James family. This is one of the only opportunities that I'll get to usurp the family and all the power our barony holds. I've had several plans coming together for the last several years, but this one has fallen into my lap and has everything I need to take the barony and stop the evil corrupting it. My butler lightly bows and proceeds to leave the room, so I'm alone with my thoughts. I know what I can do, I don't know if it'll work, though I lightly whisper to myself as I pull out some paper and ink. I dip my quill in ink and begin writing a letter to the King of Plear and the King of Zenith. Both letters are identical and should prove some help. If either my king or Zenith king listens to reason, I'll have a little more help. I finish writing the letters and reread them to see if anything is missing. Nothing looks out of place. I fold up the letters and send them via birds. I don't like sending things through magic or by a person. Potential enemies can easily intercept them. A bird is inconspicuous enough to get the job done easily. Gets to the targets after a few days and returns. I can only hope that Slayer Zyrn isn't here too early. I'll get an answer from my king before an answer from Zenith. I wouldn't be surprised if my king informs my brothers about my letter, but none of that will matter in the future. Slayer Zyrn is on his way here. Suppose my king has any sense at all. He'll help me so Slayer Zyrn doesn't come to the capital to make a repeat Belvia incident. I sit in my chair after the birds fade out of view. One is heading towards the country of Zenith, and the other is heading for our capital. I rub my temples, hoping that I can get some sort of help. If not, I'm as dead as my brothers. Would you like some refreshments, my lady? My butler walks in, pushing a cart. Taking my mind off the current problem seems like a good idea. Focusing too much on one thing for a long time isn't good for your health. My butler pours a cup of tea and puts a couple of plates of cake on the table. The aroma of the sweet cakes and tea ease my mind and relax me. Once he is finished, I start to eat the food and enjoy it calmly. The amount of time I've spent planning for all this should be worth something. I pray to the Almighty Father that something works out for me. I want to make the James family great and pure. Not the way it is now. This is a chance that could change the future of the barony, and maybe even the world of slavery. Chapter 236, Journey to the Barony of James 7. I shake Sally awake, and she opens her eyes. It's time we gotta move on. I toggle my wings on as I say that and stretch them out. Sally holds out her hand, and I help her up. I kneel so she can climb on my back. Once safely on, I launch us off the ground. Sally knows the Barony of James better than I, so it's time I finally ask what it looks like. I've been avoiding these questions because I'm afraid it'll cause her pain. However, some things are unavoidable. Mind telling me what the Barony of James looks like? We soar through the clouds at top speed. Sally is quiet, likely going through her memories of her time there. I feel her jerk a couple of times. I don't like the fact she has to go through something like this. It's a territory ruled by the Barony of James. There are some outposts and castles holding troops of the king. The city is the main source of income for the family. It's likely much bigger than it was when I escaped all those years ago. The James family's personal property is located 15 miles north of the city of James. A barony is the lowest rank among nobility. They have small lands and low amounts of troops. I don't doubt that they have their own fort or castle to stay in. The city probably gives them plenty of business, allowing a flow of willing customers to sell and buy slaves. It's a perfect front. Who's going to search an entire city? The location of their estate is close to. It lets them keep an eye on things and keep them close enough to ensure that nothing bad happens. So, how are we going to handle this? Are we going to just charge into their property and slaughter them, or take it slow and methodical? I want to hear what Sally wants to do. This is all for her. There is a small silence, and I have plans running through my head along with my own question. Every part of me wants to walk up to their property and kill them. However, we'll likely miss important information about the slave trade. If we can interrogate a member of their family before we kill them, we can learn more about direct allies they have in the slave business. She brings up a lot of valid points. I have two quests intertwined with each other. One is about Sally and her revenge, and the other is about the slave trade. I pull them both up to look at them. Fighting the disease. Description: Sally wishes to find and root out all the evil and corrupted people tied to the James Barony. Objective 1: Once in the land held by the James Barony, try and find connections that the Barony has to other slave traders. In progress. Objective 2: Kill or imprison all people that you find out about in progress. Difficulty: Legendary. Rewards: Unknown. Note: this quest is directly tied to Sally's past and meets the same condition of being at the legendary in difficulty. You have no choice but to accept this quest. This is the quest about the actual slavery going on in the Barony of James. This quest will become a huge network of rooting out and finding enemies in the slave trade. I have a deep desire to help these people. The slave market isn't just women. Men get captured for illegal forced labor. By doing this, a great evil will be leaving the world. I agree with your assessment about finding information. It'll help greatly in our attacks against the next people that have hurt you. I'm sure Sally will tell me more about the men that have hurt her during her time as a slave after we are done in the Barony of James. I pull up the quest that started all this. Sally's past. Description: help Sally in her quest for vengeance against all the men that tortured and sexually assaulted her growing up. Help her punish the Elven Kingdom for their ways. Objective 1: when the time comes, Sally will ask you for your direct help in this matter. Completed. Objective 2: once everything is done with your quest involving the Dryads, ask Sally what the first step in her revenge is. Completed. Objective 3: head to the Barony of James in the Kingdom of Plear in progress. Rewards: Unknown. Difficulty: Legendary. Note: the great difficulty of this quest is the goals that Sally has set in revenge. If they weren't so great, then the difficulty wouldn't be so high. Once Objective 3 is completed, there will be more targets after this. All of them are going to die, and nothing will stop that. The Barony of James is a place only middle and higher class people go to. There really isn't a poor population, mainly because the poor get abducted off the streets and turned into slaves. Be them men, women, children, or the elderly. We won't have any help from the poor because of this. That's valuable information. One of the best ways to get information about a place is from the poor. I flap my wings to keep the high speed up. Are there any places that can help us get information regarding our targets? Surely the James family has enemies that we can use. I want to know if any people can help us. If there isn't, then that means the James family has complete control over the territory, which will be trouble. Another problem is going to arise once we get there too. I don't doubt that they know we are coming. Nobles have big mouths, and I asked many questions about the kingdom of Plear and the barony of James while in Zenith at the wedding. Sally takes a small breath as her head lay on mine. We'll be completely on our own there. The only independent faction that might be willing to help is the Adventurers Guild. However, they are likely in the pockets of the James family. The Adventurers Guild is a faction I'll never want help from. It's better if we didn't involve them. No empire or kingdom can compete with the full power of the Adventurers Guild and their strongest members. They are a monopolistic organization that terrorizes weaker people and factions. Monopolies aren't illegal here on Gaia. Back on Earth, monopolies were bad for the economy. The economy here is different from Earth. Its unmodernized infrastructure and stagnation in technology have allowed the existence of monopolies since they are needed for the lack of invention and innovation. We are staying away from the Adventurers Guild. It'll be smart if they don't know we're in the area once we are there. I'd bet money they are helping the James family for a split of the profits. The Adventurers Guild is an enemy that I have no need to be involved with. I have no doubt I can kill their strongest members and destroy their guild, but that could cause catastrophe across Gaia. The Adventurers Guild is in charge of a lot of things and protects important locations. If I destroy them, I'd be dooming many people who have no choice but to rely on the Adventurers Guild. I've heard some pretty bad things about them myself, and if that's your decision, then I'll agree to it. Sally notifies me of her agreement with not letting the Adventurers Guild know we are around once there. I have a final question for the time being. I'm sure I'll have more during the trip. Do you think that you'll ever try and find your family after we are done with revenge against the slavers and elves that did this to you? She knows next to nothing about her family. They abandoned her mother when she lost her purity when she was taken by a bandit and became pregnant with Sally. I'd want nothing to do with them if they were my family. However, Sally might not want the same thing as I would. She might want revenge on them too. She tightens her grip around me as she thinks about it. I'll support whatever decision she makes. Give me some time to think about it. I'll let you know when I've come to a conclusion. That's all I need to hear. Now that my questions and thoughts are quelled for now, I'm going to enjoy the calming flight. This next step is going to be a big one. Sally getting her revenge is going to be the biggest quest I've been a part of. Taking on an entire kingdom of elves and an underground network of vile slavers. I'm going to enjoy killing them. Chapter 237, Journey to the Barony of James 7. We've been flying for the whole day, and it's now in the late evening. The sun is lighting the sky up in an orange hue that would put any sunset on Earth to shame. We haven't really talked for the majority of the day, really enjoying the trip. I bring us down slowly next to a river. Not diving like I did yesterday. I land softly, and Sally hops off my back. We should be reaching the Barony of James by tomorrow late morning. So let's get some rest and finish the trip. Sally nods her head in agreement as I walk away from the river and set up the tent. Once fully done with that, I set up a fire and pull out some of the elk meat in my inventory. I sit down at the fire, and Sally sits next to me. I hand her a piece of meat, and we both dig in. While it isn't good food, it's enough to keep us satisfied. I've been thinking about what you asked me. In truth, I don't know. There is no need for an answer now. She looks at me from my side, waiting for a response. I look at the massed open sky and orange hue that is being cast by the sunset. She nudges me for a response. I guess she really needs one. I stop holding myself up and lay on the ground, looking up at the clouds. I wasn't expecting an answer today, Sally. Decisions like this take time, and you need to relax. Stop worrying about the future for right now. Let's handle what needs to be handled, and then I'll ask you when we are done. Until then, only give it thought when there is nothing else to think about. It's not a big problem or inconvenience if I don't have an answer for it right now. She looks down at me and very slowly nods her head. She decides to lay down and rest her head on my shoulder. As Sarah and Sally relax and wait for the sun to set. The night has already captured the Elven Kingdom. There is chaos in the capital, more so than there has been for centuries. The royal family is running around with their heads cut off, figuratively, of course. The angriest and desperate of these elves in the royal family is the queen and ruler of the Elven Kingdom. The rumors that Slayer Zirn is traveling with an elf have been confirmed, and not only does this shake plans for the elves. The identity of the elf Slayer Zirn is with causes problems. I can't believe this is actually happening. A damn half-blood ex-slave is going to ruin all my plans for the future. I'm looking around my council, and many of them are not wearing happy expressions. In fact, we are all royally pissed off right now. Does anyone know how the hell Salyandra Orvalo is still alive and is with Slayer Zirn? She is a baby born from rape and has had her purity taken from her when she was a slave in the Barony of James. Why in the hell is Slayer Zirn traveling with her? Many of the council members look at each other. The Orvalo house has been a great ally to my kingdom. Salyandra's mother was supposed to marry my eldest son. Instead, she was captured and raped by bandits on her way to the capital. Having been deemed impure now, the wedding and engagement were cancelled. Later we all found out that Salyandra's mother was pregnant with her. Another massive disgrace to the Orvalo family. They then banished her, and she ended up a slave in the Barony of James. She gave birth to Salyandra there, and now Salyandra has apparently become a very close ally and possible lover to Slayer Zirn. The amount of problems this causes is insurmountable. Not only does Salyandra undoubtedly bear resentment towards us. All we know is that a little after Salyandra turned 20, she escaped from the Barony of James and has been on the run ever since. The Orvalo family demands that we either capture and imprison her or hunt her down and kill her. However, that is impossible due to the relationship she has with Slayer Zirn. Of course, the Orvalo family will try to cause more problems instead of help fix them. I sigh and rub my hands across my temple. This is a clusterfuck that I have no idea how to fix. A damn half-breed bitch is going to be the downfall to all my plans. Do we even know where they are at the moment? I ask a question that I know we don't have the answer to, but I can hope. The worried expressions across the council tell me that everything is only going to get worse. I'm sure Salyandra hates and resents us. So that will come back to bite us in the ass. Markwar stands up and clears his throat. He is one of my best allies. He is in charge of the kingdom's spies. He looks me dead in the eye. I think it's in our best interest to prepare for a bloody confrontation with Slayer Zirn and Salyandra. My spies in the palace in Zenith told me that Slayer Zirn was asking about specific things about the Elven Kingdom. Our troop count, how power as a nation, our population. The location of the capital. I'm sure that an attack from Slayer Zirn is coming in the future. Most likely at the request of Salyandra. My head spins at the new information. This throws everything on its head. As the meeting continues in the Elven capital, the two people it's about are lying in the tent now that the sun has set. There is something that has yet to be known to Sarah. Something that he has put off asking, and it's, of course, about Sally. Sarah knows that elves aren't given human names like Sally. He knows that elven names are extravagant and long. That's no different with Sally. He is trying to find the right words to ask her if he can know her full name. After all, she knows his now. It's only fair that his curiosity is satisfied. I sit in silence as I try to find the right words. I want to know Sally's full name, the one her mother gave to her. Perhaps just asking about it is the best thing to do. Get it over with. Sally, she lifts her head at my worried voice, and I can see her confusion on it. Can I ask you something personal? She wears a curious look, and she nods her head with a smile. What's your real name? I know Sally is too human for an elf. Your mother would have given you a beautiful elf name. She looks at me in surprise and shock. She probably thought she'd never had to do this. She rolls back on her side and releases a deep sigh. I don't know if she'll tell me or not, but I'd like to know. My mother was from a noble family called Orvelo. She was to be married to the eldest prince. Not until my nameless bandit father's gang captured her, raped her, and impregnated her with me. I can hear the pain and fear in her voice. I wrap my arm around her, and she hugs me a little tighter. I didn't know my name until I read my mother's second diary. It's Saliandra Orvelo. That's my real name. I always preferred Sally. I kiss her forehead as she finally lets the tears flow. This girl has been through so much, and so many people would demean her for the things she's been through. Make her feel disgusting and ugly for her existence. I'll never feel that way about her. My bandit scum father is probably long dead. I don't even know his name. Her voice is shaky and is choking up between sobs. Asking a simple question can sometimes bring up the worst of someone's pain and past. I shouldn't have asked her, but I'm glad I know her real name now. I run my fingers through her hair as I hold her, and she cries. I could say something right now to make her feel better. However, I think just letting her cry and get all the pain out is what she needs right now. There are moments when a woman just needs to vent and cry. Someone to lean on while that happens. It can greatly help. I'm sorry that I'm such a disgusting existence. She lets out a put down on herself between her sobs. People have probably been telling her that her whole life, and it's in her head that she is like that. I don't know what to say, so she doesn't think like that, but I'm going to give it my best damn shot. Chapter 238, Journey to the Barony of James VIII. Sally continues to weep hard into my shoulder. She needs to hear that the things she thinks about herself are wrong. I slowly run my fingers through her hair and let her cry, thinking about my answer. You're not disgusting, Sally. You're a girl who had an incredibly hard life. You're pure, Sally. You're a pure girl with a clean soul. Her crying slows down really fast as I say those words. This world's definition of pure is wrong, and how someone can be branded as impure makes me sick. It was out of her control, and that doesn't make her impure. She leans up and looks at me with really puffy eyes and some snot running down her nose. She searches my face and eyes for any doubt in my words, but there isn't a shred. She is a pure girl. She isn't a disgusting existence. Her eyes begin to water even more, and she buries her face in my chest, and she tries to hold back the sobs. You're the only woman I've been like this during my entire life. That may not mean much to someone else, but to me, it means you are truly special. She grips my leather chest piece and releases heavy sobs. I hope my words are reaching her, making a change in some way. She continues to cry her eyes out and let all the pain and bottled up feelings out. Holding it in for so long, it will explode as it is now. I hold her in my arms, and she slowly calms down over the course of a few minutes. You really think I'm a pure woman? Her voice vibrates through my chest as she asks that question. People telling her that she isn't pure has caused a huge problem for her. She must be fighting inside with the ideal, the wrong one. She is pure, and others saying she isn't is wrong. She has waited long enough for my response. You are a pure woman, Sally. I love you. I feel like it's one of those moments that it needs to be said. She lifts her head at my words and stares into my eyes again. Her chin quivers, and she crawls up my body and leans her head down as we are now face to face. I place my hand on her lower back and run it up and down as she lowers her lips unto mine. After a connection, many tears fall from her eyes. They fall on my cheeks as we slowly move our lips together. As Sarah and Sally begin the escalation of the moment. Someone has finally arrived at the city in the Barony of James. Haley has arrived ahead of schedule and sees the city up ahead. The city is 15 miles south of the actual fort the James family resides in, so she will be staying in the town and asking around about the important facts. Their schedule, who their allies are, who their enemies are. The weaknesses in their defenses and how many troops are at the fort. Haley is unaware that her brother and his partner are on their way there too. I see the glowing lights of the city up ahead. It's very small compared to the capital cities that I have been to. Avalon was a very amazing place to see, and I'm glad I made it to Tier 2. I can only wonder what Tier Sarah is at. Mew, a familiar sound comes from my backpack, and that means Emerald is awake. The cub pops her head out of the opening and yawns. I stop for a second, pull her out, and place her in her favorite place to rest on long journeys. The home of my enemies is just beyond that city, and if I want to do this incognito, then I can't reveal my identity. Emerald purrs as she rests between the back of my neck and my backpack. I only have the backpack for her. Since I can't store her in my inventory, this was the next best thing. I calmly walk the road and eventually see the line that is stretching out from the gate. I don't know why their security is high, but that won't be a problem for me. I doubt any of them know who I am just by my looks alone. I start cutting in line and walking beside it, heading straight to the front. Many give glares at my actions, but I'm not wasting hours sitting in a line. The guard sees me approaching and holds up his hand. No cutting in line, head to the back. I pull out a little bag that has about 10 gold in it. I toss it to him, and he looks at the bag. He feels around and never breaks eye contact. He steps aside, and I make my way in. No one says anything cause this is pretty normal in places like the Barony of James. Once inside the city, I see plenty of inns and drunks walking around. Now that the workday is over, the ones that have time off are getting wasted. That just makes things easier for me. I follow the main road and head to the richer district of the city. I find myself a nice inn and pay for the next week. I'll pay more if it takes me longer to take down the James family. I lay Emerald on the soft bed, and she purrs against the soft covers. I unequip my clothes and lay on the bed in my underwear. Emerald hops on my chest and curls up into a little ball. I pet her as she purrs and vibrates through my body. We are going to be staying here for a little while, Emerald, make yourself at home. She lets out a little mew in response to my words. With Haley now fully in the city in the Barony of James, other people are making moves. As such, there is a huge commotion happening in Zenith. It turns out someone in the coalition has sent an assassin to kill Jackson or his wife. The couple is sitting in their throne room. They are going to head to bed any minute now. However, someone has snuck onto the property. The assassin is sneaking through the halls and slowly making his way to the throne room, where he is to kill either the queen or king. Whoever sent him left no connection. I sit with my wife as we see the empty throne room. There are no more problems to deal with, and it's about time we also made our way to bed. I think it's about time we retire. Don't you think? I stand up from the throne and stretch my body as I say that. I look to my queen, and I hold out my hand. She takes it, but before she can respond, there is shouting coming from the halls to the west. I turn my head, and a man in a dark cloak bursts through the door. He turns his attention directly to us and charges with a short sword in hand. Everything is in slow motion, and I try to cast magic fast enough, but it's taking just a little too long. I hear my queen scream as the man gets closer, and the guards have looks of distress as they try and catch him from behind. A bright light from the direction of my queen appears, and I look to see what is happening. Suddenly the strike from the cloaked man is stopped, and a white shield is surrounding us. I look to the origin of the light, and it's the feather that Slayer Zirn gave her for our wedding. It's creating a protective barrier. Suddenly, white tendrils come from the barrier and grip the man. My wife continues to scream in horror, not realizing that he isn't going to make it. Suddenly, the tendrils crush the man as if he's nothing, and he falls to the ground, lifeless. The light from the feather stops as my wife calms down. I hold her in my arms as the guards quickly run up and shield us from the body. They stab it multiple times to make sure the man is actually dead. What the fuck is going on? I yell to the captain of my guards as I see him enter the throne room with bated breath. He quickly approaches and kneels on the ground. I'm sorry, my king. He snuck past our perimeter and made it into the castle before one of our units spotted him. Once compromised, he made sure that he got here. Many guards are dead, and there are no clues on how he got past the magic perimeter. I hold my wife as she clings to me and lightly sobs. This is the closest she's ever come to death, and it terrified her. I look at the feather, and I give a silent thanks to the Almighty Father and Slayer Zirn for protecting my wife. The power of the feather should be further explored. For now, it's time to discuss what just happened. Chapter 239, Journey to the Barony of James 9. Now that the crisis in the palace in Zenith is over, more and more questions keep popping up. My wife has retired to our bedroom, and I'm sitting with my counsel right now. I'm surprised someone is bold enough to send an assassin after me in such a manner. There are no clues on the body. There is also no way to tell where the assassin came from based on skin color. The only thing we do know is this is a statement from whoever this enemy is. One of my generals, Killian, describes the situation to the best he can with the current information we have. I have an idea of who this is. Gregory isn't happy with my move, and my actions have jeopardized the coalition. Something that gives him more authority than most would like to give to another ruler. I'm free from that, however, and I'm sure that others will follow. Seeing the benefits of no longer being tied to the church or the coalition. It's either two things. Gregory is trying to send a message and is preparing to do something in retaliation. The other is someone using the conflict between Gregory and you, my king. That's actually a brilliant point too. One that I didn't think of. It has a lot of merits. There is only one problem, though. Gregory is the only obvious enemy. I have no idea who a possible mysterious enemy might be. I want our spies to dig into both these theories. More so, the second one. Gregory is mad and might become this drastic, but I can see the second theory being more plausible. I look at my head of spies, Willoak. He slowly nods his head and stands up to leave. He must want to start right away. I sigh as I rub my forehead in slight pain, a headache coming from many hours without sleep. That leaves another subject to talk about. The feather we received from Slayer Zirn is proving to be more than just a feather. It did come from his wings, after all. The golden feather emitted a perfect white light, and with that white light came a defense that couldn't be broken through. As well as a devastating offense. One that crushed the assassin as if he were nothing. What do we know about the feather and its powers? I ask the question to the room, but no one says anything. It's currently with my wife still as she sleeps. She might not ever want to part with it after this. Not that I blame her for feeling that way, the feather has proved capable of protecting from threats and killing them as well. The magic department has some theories on why that is. However, without an analysis of the feather, we won't know for sure. Before the conversation can continue, a heavy knocking can be heard from the door to the council chambers. The only reason to ever interrupt a meeting of the council is because of an emergency. One of the royal guards in the room walks to the door and opens it. The guard captain falls in with heavy breaths. The royal guards help him to his feet, and he shoves them off in frustration. There's been another attack. Someone tried to kill Queen Tessa. I feel a pit in my stomach form, and I stand up in a fury. We should have seen it. They didn't want to kill us in the throne room. They wanted to separate us so that they can have an easier single target. I rush out of the room and charge down the hall. Navigating the long corridors and turns. I see our room up ahead, and there are guards everywhere. I see blood leaking out from the room, and I fear the worst. I run even harder, and as I enter the room, I see the mangled body of an assassin, just like the one in the throne room. I dart my eyes around the room, and I don't see Tessa anywhere. Where is she? I shout to every guard in the room, and a group of them part away from the bathroom. She is hiding in the bathroom, trying to get away from all the people. Everyone leave us. They obey and close the door behind them as they leave. I walk up to the door and silently stand in front of it. I knock a couple of times, seeing if Tessa will answer. He tried to kill me, I hear a small voice behind the door, and my anger rises as I hear her say those words. I hear footsteps come towards the door, and she opens it. I look down at her, and her eyes are puffy, and she has blood on her nightwear. He said that if I didn't hand over the feather he'd kill me before I could respond. He attacked the feather, protected me again. I look at the feather as it still rests in her hair. Undisturbed and perfect. As if nothing could break it. We should have looked deeper. It wasn't an attack on us but a mission to retrieve the feather. Someone must have known that the feather has unique magical properties. She starts crying again and falls into my chest. I wrap my arms around her, and she does the same. We'll find out who's doing this and take care of them. Until then, we'll have to remove the feather and place it in the treasure vault. Tessa cries a little harder, and I don't know why. She pulls away and looks up at me, shaking her head no. I look at her in confusion. Before I can ask, she undoes the braid in her hair so the feather can fall out. However, that doesn't work. She lifts the feather for me to see. What I see completely shocks me. The feather has begun to fuse with her beautiful hair. What the she looks down at it with me. The feather can't be removed without cutting her hair now. Does cutting it work? I ask my next move, hoping that she has already tried that. She shakes her head no, and I feel more worry build in me. While this situation isn't bad, it isn't good either. She dries her tears as she fiddles with the feather and the hair around it that has turned a vibrant white. When I tried to cut the hair, the scissors broke. It's made my hair indestructible and slowly turning it a heavenly white. Watch. She angles the white patch of hair attached to the feather into the light. It begins to sparkle and dance. I don't know what's going on. I'm scared, Jack. I hold her tightly as she says that. I wouldn't have let her wear the feather in her hair if I knew this would happen. Did Slayer'sirn know this would happen? Soon the doors to the room creak open, and some guards and my council members walk into the room. Some go to inspect the body immediately. This means our initial theories were wrong. What do you suggest we do now? Killian begins to speak, asking the room what the next step will be. My anger and rage build the more I think about it. This is the second time today that my wife has been attacked. The second time that she hasn't felt safe in her own home. Whoever is doing this will have a war on their hands. I hold Tessa as I walk to Killian. I lean in to talk quietly. When we find out who's doing this, declare war. It's obviously not Gregory, and someone is trying to get what Slayer'sirn left for us. Killian nods his head with the new orders, and he leaves. The rest follow suit, and I sigh. Come on, let's go find somewhere else to sleep tonight. Tessa slowly nods her head, and we leave. The servants and guards will clean this all up by tomorrow, but I doubt she'll ever want to sleep in this room again. We slowly walk the halls as we hold each other. My thoughts are racing as we continue to walk. Heading to a room that is fully furnished and ready for use. Guards are trailing behind us and making sure that we are safe. How long do you think it'll take before we find out who did this? I honestly don't know how to answer her question. There is no way to say we will definitely. There are plenty of people who'd want the feather. Religious fanatics, power-hungry nobles, people wanting power. The feather seems to be capable of many things, and who knows how much more will be discovered about it. It's still fusing with her hair. Chapter 240, Journey to the Barony of James X. I sit down on the bed with her, and I let her go. I sigh and plop down on the soft mattress. Tessa is still sitting up, looking around the room from time to time, as if searching for something. I place my hand on her back as I'm still lying down. I rub and try to help relax her. What am I going to do about this? She holds her hair in her hands as she says that. The beautiful heavenly white is still traveling in her hair, and it's spread in the little time that I've been watching it. She now has a permanent weapon that'll be protecting her and fighting to kill threats. A big part of me is very glad that she now has something like this. The other parts are split between that many will deem it unfair, and others will demand the same treatment. When they aren't in any position to demand. In fact, a noble of my kingdom can be jealous enough to send assassins to try and get the feather. Another possibility to this shit show. Enemies I have and didn't have are popping up to try and take something with a very high value. The value of that feather is high. It makes sense this would happen. I didn't think it'd be so blatant, though. This is the truth. Tessa decides to finally lay down, and she snuggles up to me. I never would have thought the single feather would grant abilities such as this. I thought it was just a decorative piece and nothing more. Do you think Slayer Zyrn knew this would happen? Tessa brings up a train of thought I've been thinking about. Slayer Zyrn likely knew something, but he wouldn't have given away something like this if he knew it'd have powers, which begs many questions. One among them is his intentions with this action, bad or good. He wouldn't do anything to jeopardize his mother and likely gave the feather to us as a way to protect her, but that's pretty iffy. I think he knew something, but Slayer Zyrn is too unpredictable in anything regarding politics. This would be a political situation. I can't say if it's good or bad. Suppose he meant it to be either of those. I think we should be grateful you're alive and have something that will always protect us. I'll need to thank him for that. Tessa and I stare up at the immaculate designs of the bedposts that are hanging curtains and covers. While this is going on in Zenith, there is a private discussion happening in the Elven Kingdom. A discussion about Salyandra Orvalo. The people that are discussing this are the Queen and her princesses. The princes are not in this meeting since they are not active in the plans to be wed to Slayer Zyrn. They are men, after all. Many have grown to the conclusion that it's wise to abandon the idea of one of the elven princesses being married to Slayer Zyrn. Now that his opinion of the elves has severely fallen due to Salyandra. As the queen, I should have prepared for something like this. I never anticipated that Slayer Zyrn would have found another elf, half-breed or not. Most elves aren't allowed to leave the Elven Kingdom unless banished as Salyandra's mother was. Salyandra has no obligation to the Elven Kingdom due to being born from a banished citizen. There are less than 500 banished elves, and even fewer of them have had children. Salyandra happens to be one of them, and now this incredibly unlikely scenario has happened. There is nothing I can do. I look at my two daughters, and they inherit their beauty from me. I was going to have Slayer Zyrn marry both of them and produce many children. So our royal family will be of divine blood. Now that dream is nothing more than dust in the wind. We need to find a way to convince Slayer Zyrn to leave Salyandra or convince Salyandra to become a citizen of the Elven Kingdom again. That way, we can at least make her nobility of a separate line, and any children she has with Slayer Zyrn will be a part of the Elven Kingdom. These are the best scenarios for us, and they'll be hard to complete. My daughters nod, and I look around the room of messengers and bounty hunters. I've called them here today for one reason. To spread the word that Salyandra is to be returned to the Elven Kingdom. I know that you want us to spread these claims. However, she likely goes by some other name. Not to mention nobody knows what she looks like. The only way anyone will know it's her is if she is seen with Slayer Zyrn. One of the masked bounty hunters begins asking questions that he has no business asking. However, they are good points. I lean back in my chair, and I come up with a solution. Whoever finds and convinces Salyandra to return to the Elven Kingdom will receive a legendary weapon from our personal treasure vault. Make sure the reward is also spread. The more eyes that are looking, the better. I suggest you all start your search in Zenith, which was the last known location. Many nod their heads and leave. I look towards my daughters as we are the last ones left in the room. They are waiting for orders themselves, and I have them. While all this is going on around Gaia, Sarah and Sally are having a moment that has become more frequent with them. Intercourse. After the words from Sarah, let's just say it brought a desire for physical contact out of Sally. They are still in their tent, and it's now very dark and slightly chilly. However, they likely don't know due to the cries of pleasure and heat generated inside the tent. Breathless moans and some steam is exiting out of the entrance to the tent. The actions going on inside are more intense than they have ever been before. I slam my hips into hers, and my long rod crushes her cervix. pressing against her womb hard. She lets out a long moan and escalates the longer I hold it there. I pull back out fast and slam again. Her fingernails scrape down my back, and a shot of pleasure runs through me. She opens her eyes to look into mine as a trail of drool exits the corner of her mouth. I slow down slightly and gyrate my hips as I go in and out of her, stirring up her insides. The sloshing wet sounds coming from her are a great indicator. Not to mention the constant noises from her mouth. My new technique causes her toes to curl and point repeatedly. I've already shot inside her once, but I can feel the pressure building in the base and a heat spreading up my rod. A slight expanse causes her to cry out. "You're about to explode, aren't you?" She runs her hand along the side of my face as she half-lidded eyes close and open when I exit and enter again. "I love it when your heat is placed deep in me." Her words make my head spin, and I'm glad for my skill, controlled fun. It'll stop me from making her pregnant. The pressure can't be held back anymore, and I bury deep inside her as I release everything. "Oh my God!" she cries out as I paint her insides white and load her womb full of white liquid. We both breathe deeply and are dripping in sweat. Her entire body is trembling, and it twitches from time to time. She is covering her eyes and forehead with an arm as her body continues to convulse. "It's so hot," she whispers out to me, and that causes a new wind to be blown into me. My rod hardens again, and I rub it slowly on her entrance. She feels the sensation and coos. She lifts her arm from her head and looks down. Her eyes are slightly blank, but she can see how hard and excited my member is. "I don't know if I can take any more than this, but I'm not going to deny you, Sarah." The way she whispers my name like that, I can't control myself. I line my tip up and insert my rod into her fast, going as deep she can go, and I kiss her womb again. This action causes her to throw her head back and her tongue to stick out. I lift her slightly and see her eyes are rolling into the back of her head.